The Zarketh Dominion ruled the galaxy without fear. For thousands of years, they crushed weaker species, turning entire civilizations into slaves. No one had ever stopped them. No one had ever dared to fight back. Their warships were massive, covered in thick armor, with weapons that could burn planets. Their warriors were tall, powerful creatures with sharp claws and skin like steel. Every time they invaded a new world, they won within days. To them, conquest was easy. Now, their next target was a small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy, Earth. A new target. High Commander Varrock Thol stood on the bridge of the Zarketh flagship, staring at the holographic display. A single planet floated in the middle of the screen. "This is the one?" he asked. "Yes, High Commander," one of his officers responded. "The species calls itself humans. Their planet is rich in resources. Their defenses are weak." Varrock Thol grinned, his sharp teeth glinting under the red lights of the control room. "Then this will be quick," he said. His fleet of hundreds of warships was already moving toward the Sol system. It would only take a few days before they arrived at Earth. He had no doubts about the outcome. Earth would fall, just like every other planet before it. The invasion begins. The Zarketh fleet entered Earth's orbit without resistance. Their sensors detected primitive satellites and small space stations, but no real defenses. Varrock Thol almost laughed. "This is what they call a civilization," he muttered. "Pathetic." The first wave of dropships descended toward the planet. Thousands of Zarketh warriors, armed with plasma rifles and heavy armor, landed in cities across Earth. Their orders were simple: destroy military resistance and take control. As they marched through the streets of major cities, they expected fear. They expected surrender. Instead, they met something else: the unexpected resistance. The 1st Zarketh Battalion landed in a city humans called New York. Their commanders ordered them to move forward, but within minutes, something went wrong. Explosions. From the rooftops, small human drones dropped smart bombs on the invaders. In the streets, human soldiers fired advanced railguns that tore through Zarketh armor like paper. The Zarketh warriors roared in frustration. This was not supposed to happen. But before they could regroup, human stealth bombers appeared in the sky. Missiles rained down, wiping out entire platoons of Zarketh troops. A cold realization spread through the Zarketh ranks. This wasn't going to be easy, a fight they never expected. Back on the flagship, Varrock Thol watched the battle reports with narrowed eyes. "This is impossible," he growled. "How could a species so primitive fight back like this?" His troops were being hunted in the streets. His warships were being targeted by hidden weapons. And worst of all, the humans were not afraid. The invasion was not going as planned. Varrock Thol clenched his fists. For the first time in his long career, he felt uneasy. Something about these humans was different, and he was about to learn just how dangerous they really were. High Commander Varrock Thol stood in silence, watching the battle reports. The holographic screen flickered, displaying casualty numbers he had never seen before. Thousands of Zarketh troops were dead. Entire squads had been wiped out. His warriors were supposed to be the strongest in the galaxy. They had conquered countless planets, crushed entire civilizations, and never faced real resistance. But now, they were losing. Varrock Thol's claws dug into the metal armrest of his command chair. "This shouldn't be happening," he growled. His officers looked nervous. No one had ever seen the Zarketh Dominion struggle in battle. Until now. "What are these humans?" one of the commanders muttered. Varrock Thol had no answer, but he knew one thing. This invasion was no longer simple. A war unlike any other. On the ground, the Zarketh warriors fought harder, but the humans were relentless. The invaders expected humans to panic. They expected Earth's military to fall apart. Instead, they found themselves trapped in a brutal, organized counterattack. Human snipers picked off Zarketh commanders before they could give orders. Ambush teams used hidden explosives to destroy entire squads. Hackers disabled Zarkath communication lines, turning their own technology against them. In New York, a battalion of Zarkath soldiers had tried to regroup in an abandoned skyscraper. They thought it was a safe position. They were wrong. A team of human special forces had rigged the entire building with explosives. The moment the Zarkath forces gathered, the building collapsed on top of them. Thousands of years of dominance meant nothing. The Zarkath were being hunted. Desperation on the flagship. Back on the flagship, Varrock Thul slammed his fist against the console. The metal dented under his strength. "This is not possible," he roared. His officers stood frozen. No one dared to speak. One of them finally whispered, "High Commander, should we retreat?" Varrock Thul turned, his yellow eyes burning with fury. The Zarkath had never retreated. But now, even his top generals were considering the impossible. "We do not retreat," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "We end this." The Zarkath fleet was still powerful. Their ships were massive, armored, and armed with planet-destroying weapons. If ground forces were struggling, he would burn Earth from orbit. "Prepare the bombardment," he ordered. "Destroy their cities. Leave nothing behind." His officers hesitated for only a moment before obeying. But as they activated the targeting systems, something unexpected happened. The humans strike back. Deep in space, just beyond Earth's orbit, something moved in the darkness. The Zarkath fleet had been too focused on the invasion to notice. But now, sensors flashed red. Unknown vessels detected. An officer shouted. Varrock Thul turned sharply. "Unknown? What do you mean?" "This planet is primitive." Before anyone could respond, the first human warships decloaked. They weren't massive like the Zarkath battleships. They weren't covered in heavy armor. But they were fast. And they were silent killers. In seconds, human warships launched a coordinated surprise attack. Stealth fighters weaved between the Zarkath ships, targeting weak points in their armor. Missiles exploded against key systems, disabling shields before the Zarkath even had time to react. Electronic warfare teams hacked into Zarkath communications, creating chaos in their fleet. The unstoppable conquerors of the galaxy had just learned a hard truth. Humans don't fight fair. The battle turns. Varrock Thul watched in shock as his warships started exploding. The Zarkath fleet was larger, stronger, and more advanced. But the humans were smarter. Their ships moved in ways the Zarkath had never seen. They struck and disappeared before retaliation. They jammed sensors, blocked signals, and overloaded weapon systems. And then came the worst part. The human battleship. It was nothing like Zarkath designs. A terrifying black warship, bristling with unknown weapons, it appeared out of nowhere and fired a single shot. A massive pulse wave erupted across space. The energy rippled through the Zarkath fleet, shutting down half their systems in an instant. Panic spread through the flagship. "High Commander, we've lost control of weapons. Shields are failing." Varrock Thul couldn't believe what was happening. The greatest conquerors in the galaxy were losing to humans. A terrifying realization. The High Commander's heart pounded as he watched the battle fall apart. He had underestimated this species. They weren't just another weak civilization. They weren't just another easy conquest. Humans were something else. They were adaptable. They were ruthless. And worst of all, they weren't afraid. Varrock Thul clenched his fists. For the first time in his life, he felt fear. And he knew. This war had just begun. The Zarkath Dominion had ruled the galaxy for centuries. Every species they encountered either submitted or died. But now, for the first time, they were running. Varrock Thul stood frozen on the command deck, his claws gripping the edge of his control console. His fleet was in chaos. Battleships were losing power. Cruisers were exploding one by one. Communication signals were jammed. The humans, these so-called primitives, We're tearing through the most feared armada in the universe. This cannot be happening, Varrock Thol whispered. But it was. A ruthless new enemy. On Earth's surface, the Zarketh invasion force was in full retreat. Their warriors, once unstoppable, were now being hunted. Human snipers eliminated them from the shadows. Stealth drones tracked their every movement. EMP weapons disabled their advanced technology, leaving them defenseless. A Zarketh war chief named Tovakrol tried to rally his soldiers. They had occupied Paris just a day ago, but now the city was a death trap. "Hold your ground," he ordered. But his warriors were terrified. They had expected glorious battle. Instead, they were ambushed, trapped, and slaughtered. Then the humans made their presence known. A deep voice echoed through the ruined streets. "You thought you were the hunters," it said, "but now you are the prey." Boom! A series of explosions tore through the Zarketh ranks. Buildings collapsed, trapping warriors underneath. Fire rained from above as human drones bombarded their positions. Tovakrul fell to his knees, his body burned and broken. He looked up as a human soldier in black armor approached. The last thing he saw was the cold determination in the human's eyes. Nowhere to run. Back in space, the Zarketh fleet was trying to escape. But the humans weren't letting them go. Stealth fighters ambushed fleeing ships. Boarding parties stormed disabled cruisers. Hacked systems forced Zarketh pilots to crash into each other. The greatest conquerors in the galaxy had become helpless victims. Varrock Thol's chest tightened with rage. "We are EKEs, ARKAT. We do not lose," he roared. But even as he spoke, his own officers were panicking. "High Commander, our fleet is down to 40% strength. The humans are cutting off our escape routes. We need to surrender." Varrock Thol snarled. Surrender? To a species they were supposed to enslave? Impossible. But then, the human battleship appeared again. Its weapons glowed with energy. And for the first time in his life, Varrock Thol understood what it meant to be hunted. A terrifying message. Just as the humans prepared to finish the Zarketh fleet, a transmission echoed across all frequencies. A human voice, cold and emotionless, spoke. "You invaded our world. You thought we would break." There was a pause. "But we are human, and now we will show you what that means." Then the human ship fired. A massive energy wave ripped through space, consuming the Zarketh fleet. Varrock Thol screamed as the blast hit his ship. His vision blurred, his body burned. His entire fleet was being wiped out. And in that final moment, he realized. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were out for revenge. The Zarketh fleet was in ruins. Ships burned in space. Warriors screamed over the comms. And the humans, they were just getting started. A war they never expected. Varrock Thol staggered across the bridge of his flagship. His once mighty vessel was damaged, alarms flashing red, power failing. He gritted his teeth. This was impossible. No species had ever done this to the Zarketh. They were the hunters of the galaxy, the strongest warriors. And yet, humans had turned their strength against them. "Commander," an officer shouted, "our defenses are failing." The humans err. Boom. An explosion ripped through the ship, sending Zarketh officers flying. The impact was from a human boarding craft. "They're inside," the officer whispered in horror. Then the lights flickered out, and the hunt began. The unseen enemy. The Zarketh warriors rushed through the dark corridors, claws ready, weapons charged. But the humans were silent. Unseen. Deadly. A Zarketh soldier turned a corner and saw nothing but shadows. Then, from the darkness, a single human voice whispered, "You thought we were weak." Before the warrior could react, a knife slit his throat. One by one, the humans picked off the Zarketh warriors. Silent strikes. Perfect aim. Every attack precise and merciless. It was not a battle. It was an extermination, a fight for survival. Varuk Thul's heart raced. He had never felt fear like this. "Where are the intruders?" he growled. The security officer's voice shook. We don't know. They move too fast. They fight like predators." Varuk Thul's eyes widened. No, that was impossible. Humans were supposed to be inferior. They were supposed to fear the Zarketh. And yet, here he was, hiding as the humans hunted them. The wrath of Earth. On Earth, the Zarketh ground forces were falling apart. Every city they had conquered was fighting back. Guerrilla fighters ambushed patrols. Hacked technology turned Zarketh drones against their own troops. Massive EMP blasts wiped out entire Zarketh battalions. A Zarketh warlord named Tuvakalan screamed into his communicator. "We need reinforcements. The humans are relentless." Bang. A sniper round pierced his skull, silencing him forever. The human forces had one message for the Zarketh. "You started this war. Now we will end it." No escape. Back in space, Varuk Thul could hear the sounds of his warriors dying. Blaster fire, screams, the sickening crack of bones. Then footsteps. Slow, steady, unstoppable. Varuk Thul turned, his claws raised. A human soldier in black armor stepped forward, his visor glowing red. Varuk Thul snarled. What are you?" The human tilted his head. "We're the ones you should have feared." And with that he fired. The last thing Varuk Thul saw was his empire collapsing. The great Zarketh Empire was bleeding. For centuries, they had ruled the stars, crushing every species that dared to resist. They believed they were invincible. But now, they were running. And the humans, they were hunting them down. A desperate retreat. In deep space, the Zarketh flagship was trying to escape. Its hull was scared, engines damaged, weapons useless. Varuk Thul, once the most feared warlord, stood on the bridge, watching his empire collapse. "Hyperdrive," he barked. "Still offline, Supreme Commander," his officer whispered. Varuk Thul clenched his claws. The mighty Zarketh fleet had been reduced to wreckage. Thousands of ships destroyed. Millions of warriors slaughtered. And worst of all, they weren't even fighting a war. They were being hunted. Earth strikes back. On Earth, the last of the Zarketh ground forces were trapped. Surrounded. Helpless. They had come to conquer this planet. They had expected an easy victory. Instead, they were fighting for survival. Human resistance fighters stormed Zarketh bunkers. Drones and hacked weapons turned against their alien masters. EMP blasts wiped out the invaders' technology. The humans fought like demons. They never surrendered. They never stopped. A Zarketh captain fell to his knees, clutching his wounds, whispering in disbelief. They fight as if they have nothing to lose. And a human soldier standing over him replied, "We don't." A single gunshot ended him. No more mercy. In orbit, human warships cut through the remaining Zarketh vessels. Lasers and missiles turned mighty warships into floating debris. One Zarketh admiral sent a desperate transmission. "Human fleet, we surrender." The reply came instantly. Too late. A barrage of missiles obliterated the last Zarketh battleship. There would be no mercy. Not after what they had done to Earth. The Empire's last hope. Varuk Thul refused to believe it. The Zarketh had never lost a war. Never. But here he was losing everything. His officers looked at him, waiting for orders. But what could he say? He had no fleets left. No warriors to call upon. All he had was fear. Then, an officer gasped, "Supreme Commander, look." Varuk Thul turned toward the view screen, and his blood ran cold. The hunter becomes the prey. A human warship was approaching. Not just any warship. The Revenant. It was a ship built from the wreckage of fallen Zarketh vessels. a Frankenstein creation of stolen alien technology and human genius. It was a symbol of revenge, and it was coming straight for him. Varrock Thol knew then there was no escape. The Zarketh were no longer the hunters. They were the hunted. And the humans, they were here to finish the job. Varrock Thol had once believed his kind were gods. The Zarketh had ruled the stars, crushed empires, and turned entire species into slaves or food. But now the Zarketh were running. And the humans, they weren't stopping. The Revenant approaches. The Zarketh flagship, the last remnant of their once mighty fleet, drifted through space. Varrock Thol's claws gripped the command chair. His golden armor, once a sign of power, felt heavy. "They are still following us," his officer whispered. Varrock Thol turned to the screen. There it was, the Revenant, a human warship built from the bones of fallen Zarketh ships. It looked ugly, patched together with alien tech and human design. But it was deadly, and it was closing in. "We are Zarketh," Varrock Thol growled. "We do not surrender." The officers remained silent. They all knew the truth. There was nowhere left to run. The final strike begins. Inside the Revenant, Captain Daniel Cole stood on the bridge, eyes locked on the enemy vessel. "Target their engines," he ordered. "No more running." Missiles launched. Laser beams tore through metal. The Zarketh flagship shook violently as explosions tore through its hull. Inside, alarms blared. Zarketh officers shouted in panic. We are losing power." Varrock Thol slammed his fist against the console. This couldn't be happening. The great Zarketh Empire, defeated by humans. The last stand. Varrock Thol refused to die like a coward. "Prepare the boarding pods," he roared. "We take the fight to them." Hundreds of Zarketh warriors strapped into drop pods. If they were going to die, they would die fighting. The pods launched, streaking toward the Revenant. But the humans were ready. Turrets ripped through the pods before they could land. Explosions filled space as Zarketh bodies floated lifelessly. Varrock Thol watched in horror. His warriors weren't fighting. They were being slaughtered. The final words. A transmission came through. Captain Daniel Cole appeared on the screen. His face was cold, his eyes unforgiving. "Zarketh," Cole said, "this is your last chance." Varrock Thol snarled. "You think we will beg for mercy?" Cole's expression didn't change. "We're not here for mercy. We're here for justice." The Zarketh commander laughed bitterly. "Then finish it." Captain Cole nodded. Fire. The end of the Zarketh. The Revenant's main cannon glowed bright. A massive energy blast tore through the Zarketh flagship. The ship erupted into fire, splitting apart. Varrock Thol had ruled the stars. Now he was nothing but dust. The Zarketh Empire was dead. Victory, but at what cost? Inside the Revenant, there was no cheering, no celebration, only silence. Earth had won, but billions had died before they could fight back. Captain Cole turned away from the screen. "This war is over," he muttered. But deep inside, he knew. For humanity, the fight was never truly over. The Zarketh Empire was no more. Their mighty fleets, gone. Their warriors, defeated. Their homeworld, burning. But victory had come at a cost. The silence after battle. Inside the Revenant, Captain Daniel Cole stood on the bridge. The holographic screen displayed the wreckage of the Zarketh fleet, burning husks drifting in space. The war was over. But instead of joy, there was only silence. "Sir," an officer spoke, voice hesitant, "we've received transmissions from multiple human colonies." Cole's gaze hardened. "Survivors." The officer nodded. "They held out, just long enough for us to strike back. Earth rises again. On the ruins of Earth, small fires still burned. The sky was gray with ash and smoke. But amidst the destruction, there were signs of life. Humans crawled out from bunkers, injured but alive. Resistance fighters, once hiding in shadows, stepped forward. They had fought, suffered, and lost everything. But they had survived. One soldier, covered in dirt and blood, looked up at the sky. He saw the Revenant hovering above. Tears welled in his eyes. "They came back," he whispered. The final message. Captain Cole stood before the holographic recorder. This message wouldn't just be for Earth. It would be for the entire galaxy. As the red light blinked, he spoke. To every species who once watched in silence. To those who thought humanity was weak. To those who believed we would never fight back. He leaned forward. "We are still here." His voice turned cold. "And if anyone dares to rise against us again, we will never fall so easily." The message was sent. Across the galaxy, leaders of empires and alien civilizations watched in silence. The meaning was clear. Humanity was no longer prey. They were now the hunters. A new beginning. The war had changed everything. Humanity had suffered. Humanity had fought. But humanity had won. The stars no longer belonged to the Zarketh. Now, they belonged to Earth. As the Revenant turned away from the battlefield, heading toward the future, Captain Cole whispered to himself, "This is only the beginning." And deep in the darkness of space, the galaxy listened.